December 22, 2009. Antarctica. The coldest, most desolate, and most unforgiving wilderness on Earth. A Basler BT-67 aircraft lifted off from Union Glacier Camp carrying 32 tourists, 2 seasoned pilots, and 2 guides, 36 souls in total. Their eyes held a single dream: to witness the breathtaking beauty of Antarctica's frozen skies. At the controls was Captain James Reed, a former military pilot with over 2 decades of experience flying these icy heavens. The midday sun blazed overhead. Antarctica's summer means 24 hours of daylight casting a blinding white carpet of snow across the horizon. Their route took them over the Ellsworth mountain range and Antarctica's highest peak, with the aircraft cruising at roughly 2,500 meters and 380 kilometers per hour. Everything was normal. Then nature revealed its true intentions. 92 minutes into the flight, at 3:32 p.m., the aircraft collided with an invisible enemy, Antarctica's notorious Katabatic storm. Supercooled ice particles traveling at 200 kilometers per hour flash froze onto the wings and propellers. Worse, they blocked the pitot tubes, the sensors that measure airspeed. Readings in the cockpit went haywire. The autopilot failed. Captain Red seized manual control, but it was already too late. A violent gust hurled the aircraft downward like a toy, and at 3:38 p.m., it slammed into a ridge of the Heritage Range. A deafening explosion, then the silence of death. When Captain Red opened his eyes, blood was streaming down his face. The cockpit was destroyed. Somehow pulling himself free, he looked around at scattered wreckage. The plane had split in two. But fortune had offered one mercy. The aircraft had struck the mountain and slid down a thick layer of snow, absorbing much of the impact. One by one, the passengers regained consciousness. Screams, pain, disbelief. "Stay calm," Red called out. "Have courage! We are alive!" He counted. 1, 2, 3, all 36. Alive. A miracle, though many had broken bones and severe injuries. They understood immediately where they were, trapped in the most dangerous place on Earth. Frozen mountains, deep glaciers, and a silence that felt like death. No one knew their exact location. The storm had thrown them 200 kilometers off course. The emergency transmitter had been destroyed in the crash. In those first 24 hours, they dismantled the wreckage and built a makeshift shelter. They had food for 15 days and 36 mouths to feed. Captain Red made one thing clear: they had to escape while Antarctic summer's endless daylight lasted. The 6-month polar night ahead would swallow them whole. On the second day, he organized teams. Small groups scouted in every direction. Others hunted for food. The injured were tended to. A 25-year-old engineer spent hours attempting to repair the shattered radio, only to find ice had permanently destroyed its components. He did, however, manage to build a small heater from the plane's battery, a modest but vital victory. All scouting teams returned empty-handed. The hunters managed only one small fish. Days passed. 5 days in, patience collapsed. A group of 5 declared that sitting and waiting was suicide. They would walk out. Captain Red pleaded, warning them it was certain death without knowing where they were. They didn't listen. They took some food and walked away, making what would become the gravest mistake of their lives, heading toward a research station over 1,000 kilometers away. By day 10, food was nearly gone. Hunger drove them to boil the leather from aircraft seats and suck on ice just to fool their stomachs. On day 20, an elderly woman succumbed to hypothermia and pneumonia. They had no medicine. They watched her suffer and die the first death, which shook everyone to their core. Meanwhile, the rescue operation searched entirely the wrong area. After 20 days, they declared the mission over. An official statement reported that the aircraft had been buried under ice and all 36 passengers were dead. Their families began mourning while they were still breathing, still fighting. Day 25, food completely gone. Survival became savage. They fashioned crude weapons from plane debris and hunted alone or in pairs. A small fish here, a seal there, fights broke out over every morsel. Humanity was eroding. Then a 5-day Antarctic blizzard struck at 300 kilometers per hour. Their shelter exploded into the air. They dug into the snow with bare hands and huddled inside their holes, 2 or 3 people per pit, crying out from hunger, listening to each other's screams. Those 5 days were worse than any hell they'd imagined. There were moments when the thought of eating one another crossed starving minds. When the storm finally passed, They climbed out hands, faces, ears all frostbitten. But that day, luck offered a large seal, and they ate, and they decided staying meant dying. Captain Red called a meeting. 10 days to stockpile food. Then they walk. On day 40, 31 survivors set out with bags on their backs and a sled of hunted meat. They moved confidently in the wrong direction. Day 41 brought knee-deep snow that turned every step into a battle. On day 45, another blizzard. 2 days hiding in snow trenches. When it passed, 4 teammates had been buried alive. Now 27 remained. Shortly after, floating near a massive glacial crevasse, they discovered 2 bodies, members of the 5 who had left early. Day 50, in the distance figures. They ran. The last 3 survivors from that original group of 5 stranded for a week before an enormous 15-foot-wide crevasse with no visible bottom. Impassable, it seemed, until their guide secured a rope across. As he crossed, the hook slipped and he fell, screaming, into the abyss. Silence fell over the group. Then the second guide gathered himself, threw the rope again, secured it firmly, and crossed. For 2 to 3 hours, one by one, each survivor crossed, trembling, gripping the rope above a bottomless drop, where one slip meant instant death. Day 65. Food gone again. When a group of penguins appeared on the glacier, desperation drove them to hunt and eat the raw flesh, a moment that stripped away whatever dignity they had left. They were simply breathing skeletons, clinging to life at any cost. Day 75. Howling Katabatic winds at 200 kilometers per hour fired ice shards like bullets against their skin. They took shelter in a snow cave and waited. Day 80. They had walked nearly 200 kilometers. They believed they were heading toward a research station 1,000 kilometers away, unaware that just 300 to 400 kilometers behind them, in the opposite direction, sat another station entirely. They had chosen wrong and now faced 800 more kilometers. The days blurred into months. Day 150. 6 months completed. The sun set for the last time and did not rise again. Antarctica's 6-month polar night had begun. Darkness devastated their mental state further. Day 170. Vitamin deficiency brought scurvy. Gums bled. Teeth loosened. Wounds stopped healing. Day 200. The youngest member of the team, an 18-year-old girl, died from scurvy. Her death broke everyone. Day 420. Captain Red, who had held the team together through everything, became gravely ill, frostbite consuming his body. A former mountaineer named Harris seized leadership. He was hard and ruthless. His decisions fractured the group. Day 470. Following Harris' dangerous shortcut, they were caught in another storm. No deaths, but they lost their way completely. Day 500. One member's frostbitten fingers developed gangrene. To stop the infection spreading, Captain Red heated a crude blade and amputated them. Day 530. A final confrontation between Reed and Harris for control of the group. Most sided with Reed. His humanity had earned their trust. Harris, furious at being outvoted, split off alone in a different direction. What became of him no one ever knew. Day 560. A skua bird, a seabird, circled overhead. The ocean was near. Dead hope stirred back to life. Day 565. A dark speck appeared in the distance. Real or a hallucination? It grew larger. A human silhouette. Electricity shot through their hollow bodies. They had walked nearly 100 kilometers of the impossible. In that moment, 571 days of agony flashed before them: the crash, the wait, the leather they ate, the 5-day burial in snow, friends frozen solid, the rope crossing over a bottomless chasm, raw flesh, months of total darkness, bodies rotting from scurvy, a companion who lost his mind and threw himself into a crevasse, 20 companions lost one by one. 2 more fell from exhaustion on the final stretch. Day 572. 13 barely human figures, more skeleton than flesh, collapsed at the door of Argentina's Esperanza research base. When the scientists opened the door, they recoiled as if facing ghosts. Treatment began immediately. The survivors learned they had been declared dead just 20 days after the crash. Their return stunned the world. Even after coming home, none of them ever fully escaped what those 572 days had done to them. Captain James Red received his country's highest civilian honor, His story was later immortalized in a book titled *572 Days, Ice and Hope*, written by acclaimed author John Creek. This story still teaches us today that when the human will to live is strong enough, even death is sometimes forced to step aside.